Good afternoon, teachers.
Good afternoon, ma'am.
Good afternoon, Paramita ma'am. How are you?
I'm doing well. How are you?
Very good, ma'am. Thank you.
Good afternoon, ma'am.
Good afternoon, ma'am. Will there be more teachers joining? Teachers who are present, would you happen to know if there will be more teachers joining?
Yes, ma'am. They will be joining in a couple of minutes.
Okay. So we'll start once everyone joins. Ma'am, do you all have the day off today?
No,
Is it-
actually, they are all attending from one person, this thing, I think.
Okay.
So they're all sitting in group and attending.
Okay.
Teachers,
Okay.
please let me know if everyone are there.
Teachers, if you could turn your video on and say hi at the beginning, I can see who all is there. Good afternoon. Good afternoon, teachers. Hi. Hi. So nice to see all of you. Good afternoon. So I think we're expecting a few more teachers, right? Okay. I'll wait for another 2 minutes and then we'll start. Are there any more groups of teachers on the other screen, in Rajni ma'am's screen or Sarita ma'am's screen?
Ma'am, KG teachers are all sitting in a group, ma'am.
Ma'am,
They are attending
Sabina ma'am would be joining in a minute.
Okay, okay. Okay, so I'll wait for everyone to join because I have a little game plan for all of you before we get to the session.
Ma'am, one more request from my side. I might have to leave the meeting in between because I have a period in last class. So
Okay.
Till then I would be here.
Okay, thank you, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am, the same with me. I will
Okay.
also would require to, leave the meeting in between.
Okay, so I'll try to wrap it up a little sooner so that, ma'am, around what time will you be leaving?
2:30, ma'am.
At around 2:30. Okay, that's in 15 minutes.
Yeah, for me, it's 2:40 around, 2:45.
Okay, okay, okay. Okay, teachers, if you could please turn your screens on. I want to start with a little game. So this game is called No Word, and the teachers who are sitting in groups can work in groups. So in this, it's a vocabulary building game that you can also implement in your classrooms. And through this, we are going to help students learn the importance of teamwork, basically. So these words will be a little difficult. It depends on the level that you are teaching. So you can choose the words accordingly for your classrooms. This will be exceptionally helpful for an English language class, where you're introducing new words, new vocabulary to your students, okay? So teachers who do not have anyone with them, you too, please try guessing the words, okay? So how this game is going to work is that I'm going to give you, rather the computer is going to give you some hints as to what the word is, and then you're going to have to guess what it is. And once I change the screen to the next word, you'll get to know what the previous word was, okay? So you will get 2 minutes to guess for every word. Okay, and we can do this in groups. It's okay to do it in groups. It's okay to discuss with our friends and our teammates and do it. And I'm introducing, yes, ma'am.
Can you please repeat the instruction, please?
So it's very simple. You're just going to get a few clues about a word and you have to guess the word. I will give you the starting letter of the word and then you will get a few clues. So you have to guess the word. I'm keeping it to a medium level of difficulty. This game will be very, very helpful for an English class where you have to introduce new vocabulary. You can do it with advanced learners as well as beginners and even intermediate learners. So it can work at all levels. It just depends on the kind of words you choose. It is same as the game that, you know, if anyone's ever played Taboo. So it's much like Taboo, and it's just that, you know, you don't have to tell, the other person doesn't have to guess, you have to guess the word in this case, okay? So this is an online resource that you can use. It's a free online resource. It's called No Word. Okay, this is something that you can do with the children in the classroom. I'm setting it to medium difficulty here, okay? Okay, so I'm going to start the game. Teachers, if you could please participate, it would be really helpful. You can know how it's going to work in your classrooms too, if you try it with your children. Okay, instead of using the online portal, you can also make clues of your own for the children. Okay, so I'm going to start the game. I've set the timer for 2 minutes. You have the option of 1 minute 30, 2 or 5 minutes. So I'm setting it for 2 minutes for every word. And then I'm going to change the word. And then we'll see at the end of 5 words, how many did we manage to accumulate. Okay, okay. So all the best. And we're starting the game now. Okay, so this is your clue. The word is a noun. It starts with the letter P, a forerunner, also that which precedes an event and indicates its approach. Think of a word that starts with P. The word is a noun. It means a forerunner. Also that which precedes an event and indicates its approach.
Pronouncer. Like,
Okay, ma'am, Paramita ma'am, you can keep it for yourself right now, and then we'll discuss it. It'll pop up once I go to the next page.
Okay.
You can all check for yourselves. It's nice to exercise our memory with words a little, because we get so lost in the classrooms. Any English teachers with us right now? Paramita ma'am, anyone else? Okay. Any guesses before we go to the next screen and get the answer? Okay. No?
Ma'am, predecessor?
Predecessor was the correct one. So I'm going to use the difficulty as easy this time. Okay. It was predecessor, Manisha ma'am. Okay. Okay. Now, the most general sense, this is the next word for you. It starts with the letter M. It's a noun. In the most general sense, any one of the, can you please see? It's a simple word. It's a very, very simple word.
Monkey.
Okay.
Yes?
Monkey.
Okay. It is monkey. It is monkey. This is the next word.
Any picture made by sticking together. Collage. Ma'am, collage.
It starts with the letter C. Yes, it is collage. It is collage.
Yes,
Correct. Okay.
Pineapple.
No. Popsicle. Popsicle.
Okay.
Popsicle.
Okay.
A supernatural being often, but not exclusively,
Ghost, fairy, angel, a supernatural S. Supernatural
Spirit.
Did someone say spirit? Yes. Okay. Great. Okay. After a few of these, I'm going to set the difficulty back to
A
medium.
service provider, such an electric company or water company, or the securities of such a provider. You. Security का ऐसे होता है ना? Your service provider. Agent. No. No.
It starts with the letter U.
You.
We have this as an extra room usually. It's called something that starts with U. A utility. Yes. Yes.
Utility.
Okay. Okay. So this is basically how we are going to go about it. I'm going to go back to the medium difficulty now, and we'll try some with the medium difficulty. Did everyone understand how to go about this game? I wanted to divide you into groups, but since there are not enough teachers today, and since some of you will be leaving, I'd like for all of you to participate and do it as much as possible. Just a moment, please. I'm going to share my screen with you. Okay. Yes, this is the word. It's an adjective. Any guesses?
Ma'am, redundant.
Let's try. Correct. This is the next word.
Chronic respiratory disease, often raising asthma. Asthma. Lacking awareness, unmindful. Omit.
No.
No.
Okay, I've gone to the next word.
Next word again. A knee reproachful expression as a remark.
Stupid.
Taunt. Okay.
Sarcasm.
Sarcasm. Sarcasm, ma'am.
Should I go with sarcasm?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am. A taunt.
Uh-oh. Okay. Okay. So basically, this was the game. We went out of time over there. So how do you think you could implement this game in your classroom? I'd like to hear from some of you. Do you think it
Literally,
can be?
students would love this game in grade 3.
Okay, grade 3, yes. What about other subjects? English, I know it can be used. What about in other subjects? Do
Even
you
other
think?
subjects also it can be used, because there are like diseases and all are related to science and social studies. In such games, we would have like different kind of landforms or soil texture. So
Right.
it can be used for science as well as English.
Okay.
Hindi, I don't know, but for languages, it is usable.
Okay.
Actually, for the KG team, we can use like, action words. We can show the picture of actions and children can guess which
Yes.
action was it. So
Yes.
we can also use it for EVS as well as English.
Right.
And yes.
Another way in which we can implement this game is that, we can give action words. This is for the KG team. It's a suggestion. You can give picture cards of action words to one group. You can ask them to describe the action to the other group, and then they'll have to guess the word. So that way, when they're describing, it's, it's enhancing their vocabulary skills. It's enhancing their description skills. So we can use it both ways. We can let the children describe the word, and we can make another group of children try and guess the word. Okay, so this is one way that we can implement it in our classrooms. Are there any other suggestions? So today we are going to be talking about assessments. That's why I started off with this game. So we can use this as a form of an assessment where the child is not very, very stressed out. They're having a lot of fun, yet being assessed at the same time. So in today's discussion, we are going to talk about setting a safe environment for assessments, basically assessments in a modern day classroom. So before I start, I'd like to know from all of you, how do you assess the students? What is your school's methodology of assessing students? Is it the usual exam, first term, second term, third term?
Ma'am, with exams, we do assess students by different kind of activities also. Like whenever we have to assess the speaking skill, we either tell them to speak about like role play or something. If we have to assess through listening skill, then we make them practice listening comprehension. Like we make them listen a story and they would answer the question that we ask. And for writing and reading, we have regular activities like paragraph writing using adjectives or articles or whatever grammar topic we are teaching, and other writing skills. This is reading skills. We do reading progress as we discussed last meetings also. So all 4 skills are being taught in different, like even assessed in different way.
Right. So today what I'm going to, yes, ma'am.
Yes, for the KG team, we don't have any assessment as such.
Right.
We can assess through, like for the teacher's understanding, maybe keeping LSRW in mind. So we conduct the class activities and through the show and tell as a role play and how interactive they are in the classroom. So based on this, we assess the small kids.
Right. And small children, they need to be in the mood to be assessed. You can't just tell them that, today is an exam, come prepared for an exam. They might not want to do it at all. Yes. Excuse my throat today. So today what I'm going to do is that I'm going to speak about the different kinds of assessments, the pros and cons of some of the assessments. Okay. So it is going to be a little word heavy. I'd like for all of you to pitch in and tell me your thoughts about these assessment methodologies. If you think that, some of the assessment methods that I'm going to talk about today, if you can implement it in your classrooms, if you can make it, maybe take it to your principal or your organization and speak to them and make it a concrete assessment method in your classroom. And how do you think it's going to help the children? Okay, so I'd like it to be an interactive session because it is a very, very word heavy session. If you don't interact with me, it will get very, very boring. Okay, because I'm going to give technical terms to all the different kinds of assessments. Okay, yes. So I'm going to start now. Just a moment, please. I'll share my screen with you. Okay, so assessments for modern day classrooms. This is what we are going to talk about. So these are the topics that we are going to cover today. We are going to talk about what is the purpose of different types of assessments. As you said that, we have many different kinds of assessments. We assess the children in different methods. So why do we do it in different ways? Okay. Now, so these are some of the assessment methods that we are going to discuss today. Diagnostic assessment, formative assessments, summative assessments, ipsative assessments, norm reference assessments, and criterion reference assessments. Okay. Does anyone know about any of these assessments? Have you ever heard of these? I'm sure all of you use it in your classrooms. Most of them are already used. They're put to use in classrooms. So we will just, bounce off the pros and cons of each of these assessments with each other. Okay. So that we know what's what. Okay. Now, what is the purpose of different types of assessments? Why? What do we need? What do we want out of these assessments from these children? Because they are coming to learn from us. Why do we have to keep assessing them continuously? So there are three reasons why we assess them. Okay, there are three purposes. One is assessment of learning, one is assessment for learning, and one is assessment as learning. Now, what is assessment of learning? Assessment of learning is the very traditional method of assessment that we follow, which is usually the grade-based method, okay, which has exams, portfolios, final projects, or standardized tests, okay. So these are the assessments of learning. What do you think of assessments of learning? Any of the teachers who haven't interacted with me as yet, I'd love to hear from you too. Okay, so yes, assessments of learning happen when we give a child a usual grade-based exam and we just base our understanding of their knowledge upon an exam sheet, upon the number of marks they get. Okay, what do you think? Is this the right way of assessing a child, that one fine day you give them this long question paper, the way we were assessed in schools? Now that you have seen as teachers that there are many different ways of assessments, do you think the way we were assessed back in the day was the right way of assessment? Anyone, please answer. As I said, I'd like to keep it interactive. Okay, so I'll continue now. Now, what is assessment for learning? Okay, assessment for learning is, I'll just go to the next slide. Yes. Now, assessments for learning provide you with a clear snapshot of student learning and understanding as you teach, allowing you to adjust everything from your classroom management strategies to your lesson plans as you go. Okay. Now, it is ongoing and it is actionable. Okay. And assessment for learning, it continues. It's the kind of, classroom assessment that you do. It's usually in the younger classes, what you do, assessment for learning. In the younger classrooms, you want to see how are they progressing every single day, right? You keep checking, you see if they're good at this skill, if they're good at that skill, then you try to better the skills that they're already good at. You try to help them, you try to support them with the skills that they're not functioning properly with. So that is assessment for learning, okay? So what do your students still need to know? These are the things that you ask yourself, okay? What did the students take away from today's lesson? Did the students find the lesson too easy or too difficult? Did my teaching strategy reach the students effectively? What are students most commonly misunderstanding? What did I most want the students to learn from this lesson, and did I succeed? Okay. So now if your students are not faring well in assessment after assessment, so that speaks a little bit about you as a teacher too. So maybe your method of assessment, maybe the way you're approaching the assessment might not be right. I know it doesn't depend on the teacher what kind of assessment you take of a student. It depends on the school. But maybe, now with the changing times, it's high time we start reevaluating the way we assess students. So I want to show you a small video that will better help you understand assessment for learning and assessment of learning. It's a short 50-second video. Teachers, I'd really appreciate it if you participate in the training.
Ma'am, is there any audio going on?
Sorry, ma'am.
Is there any audio going on? Because we are unable to hear audio.
It's just music, but okay, I'll share it with the audio from the beginning. So this is a very important line here. Assessment of learning is about accountability. Assessment for learning is about improvement. What do we understand from this? Who, when we say is about accountability, who are these students accountable to?
They're accountable to themselves only, ma'am.
Okay,
Because
but
whatever they are learning, it's for themselves. We as a teacher are assessing them.
right, but for these little children, they feel that they are accountable to their parents, they are accountable to their teachers, and in Indian society, they feel that they are accountable to their neighbors too. So, you know, when it becomes this way for a child, it becomes a very, very stressful situation to be assessed and reassessed and, you know, get those marks all the time. So the reason why we are touching upon all these different methods of assessment is so that we feel that, you know, it's high time schools start looking at different ways of assessing children so that it doesn't become too stressful for them, because our main aim is for the child to learn. Now, if we come and we deliver our lesson in one go and, you know, we are allotted only so much time per lesson because of our syllabus, because of, you know, our curriculum and all the constraints that come along with it. But we as teachers should also make sure that, you know, we give the child a few more chances. We, you know, see if they've understood what we are teaching them. So what I'm going to touch upon today is all the different methods in which we can assess children. Okay. Now, assessment as learning is the most fluid method of assessment. Okay. Assessment as learning actively involves student. So this is what we do in Instrucko. I know it's much easier for us to implement because, you know, we are an online edtech platform. So we are more fluid with our rules and regulations. We are not as answerable to the parents as a big school organization would be. And, you know, with us, the children don't have to go ahead and give ICSEs and ISC exams and things like that. So we have taken the liberty to implement this. So as the child is learning the lesson, as the child is reading the lesson, we keep interacting with them. And based on those interactions, based on the critical thinking that they displayed during the lesson, the problem solving skills, we assess them at the end of every lesson, and then we keep the assessment to ourselves, and then based on those assessments, we help the child to better themselves. I understand it's much smaller, it's much easier for a smaller organization than a school to go ahead with this, okay? So this is basically what assessment as learning means, that you keep assessing the child while you are teaching the child. Okay, so now we're going to talk about diagnostic assessments. This is the first kind of assessment that we are going to discuss today. Now, let's say you are starting a lesson in 2-digit multiplication. To make sure that the lesson goes smoothly, you want to know if your students have mastered their basics before you move on to more complicated questions, okay? So this is basically the whole soul of diagnostic assessment, that before you move on to the next portion of whatever subject or whatever topic you're teaching the child, you understand that they have their basics clear. Can someone please give me an example of how can we understand if a child's basics are clear before moving on?
One of the ways to interact with them, or assessing through some worksheets, like before admission, getting admission in any of the school. Nowadays the school has started taking admission tests, like
Right.
worksheets, that is helpful for us to understand what is the level of child, or what movement, like what can we actually do to improve her or him at that point of time.
Okay, but here the teacher has to make sure that, you know, whatever subject you are teaching. So we don't need to know if the child's basics are clear based on what someone else has taught, but if the child's basics are clear based on what we are introducing to them in the classroom environment, okay? So
Then
here,
for that, like if you ask me, for grammar topics, I mostly like to use flowchart or mind map as an example.
right.
Suppose when I was telling you about their they do writing activity based on like using adjectives or article. In that also we can assess that what difficulty level of adjective the child is using, or how easy or how hard they are using. And
Right.
through the discussion also, we write, like make a mind map or a flow chart on the board, or using the IIP panel also to create what kind of different kind of adjectives are there, or if we are seeing a picture, what kind of adjectives we can use. Sometimes we may use emotions, and why are we using that word or seeing that kind of emotion in a picture is also important.
Right. Very nice, Paramita ma'am. So I'm just going to elaborate on one of the points. Yes, ma'am. Manita ma'am.
Yes, ma'am. Ma'am, actually for the KG smaller children, if they're basic, just to check their basic skills are really, before they come to, like from LKG to UKG, when they're coming, we will be, based on writing as well as even some quiz, even based on the quiz and the picture identification, and even KG also can work with the mind mapping. So that also is here.
Exactly.
Yes.
Mind mapping is what I feel, in my experience, mind mapping is something that has worked incredibly well, because it lets you know exactly what is going on in the child's mind. Okay. You know exactly at what level the child is. You understand exactly how much the child has grasped from what you have taught them. Because in mind mapping, it is only and only their thoughts. Every child's mind map will be unique. Okay, so that way we understand where every child is at. Now, if we feel that 90% of the class has understood, has grasped what you have taught them, but there are one or two children's mind maps that are not they haven't understood. So what do you do with this child, this 10% of the class? What do you do with these children? Teachers, have we ever had to use these kind of measures in our classroom that 90% of the children have understood, their basics are clear, but 10% of your class has not understood? So how do we make sure that their basics are clear?
Ma'am, we'll go with the real, some real objects we can show them, or probably we can go with the quiz. Okay, so that is also, there is a possibility in that also. And probably we can, for me, I feel like we have to show with the real objects, ma'am, because some of them, they'll have a problem with the communication skills and the language problem. So that 10% students, I would really go with the real things. Or the picture identification.
Yes, Realia does help a lot in a class, because it helps the child connect what the object is to all the information about the object. If you just say a pumpkin is orange, it might be difficult for some children to picturize, because everyone is not a visual learner. But if you put a pumpkin in front of them, of course, it will help them to see, it will help them to understand and then recollect later. Yes, Realia is a very, very good way. Also, another method that we can use is that, maybe divide them into groups, and divide them into, say, into 5 groups. And these children who are having problems, put them with the children who have understood it properly. Maybe, divide them into 5 groups, two children who have not understood, and another 3 children who have understood full well. The best method of learning and teaching is peer learning, because once they understand, only a child will be able to come down to another child intellectual level and explain to them that, hey, this is how it works. Okay, maybe sometimes as teachers we try our best, but peer learning is also a very, very important form of learning, be it in a younger age group classroom or even for older age groups. Okay, is there any other method that you would like to share with me, teachers? Okay, so I will go on after diagnostic assessment. So basically in diagnostic assessment, we make sure that the child's basics are clear before we move on to other forms of assessment, before we give them the proper, like it's a sort of not even a unit test, it's like a draft before the final copy. So we make sure that their draft is crisp before we actually assess them, so that, when it's time for their actual assessment, they know what they're getting into. Okay. Now, diagnostic assessments can also help benchmark student progress. Consider giving the same assessment at the end of the unit so that students can see how far they've come. Okay. Students love seeing, not only students, we as teachers, parents, all of us love to see how much progress the child has made. Okay. So diagnostic assessments help with this. What are formative assessments? This is the next kind of assessment that we're going to touch upon. Okay. Now, just because students made it to the end of the unit test, it doesn't mean that they mastered the subject. I think we can all agree with this as teachers that, just because a child has scored very high or even mediocre in the test, it doesn't mean that they've understood everything about the topic. Do you feel that sometimes in your classrooms too? That how many of us, for example, we can take ourselves as examples. So how many of us actually recollect how much we studied in our classrooms when we were younger? Not much. Because most of our assessments were based on, we had to learn for our exams, and if we fared well in our exams, it was all good for us. If not, then maybe we'll fail our exam or we'll have to re-give our exam. So there was a plethora of things associated with it, which might not have been the healthiest environment to create for children. So that is why we are evolving as educators and giving our children these chances today. Okay, now formative assessments help teachers to understand student learning while they teach and adjust their teaching strategies accordingly. Okay, now you try Realia also doesn't work. Then you try something else. Then that also doesn't work. You try something else. Okay, so here this might be a more painstaking process, but we do owe our children the best of education that we can provide. We do owe them our best. Formative assessments help you track how students' knowledge is growing and changing in your classroom in real time, okay? While it requires a bit more of time investment, especially at the beginning, the gains are more than worth it, okay? It will take a little more time. You will have to be a little more patient with the child, but try evolving with the child. Try evolving your teaching methodologies for the classroom, for the children. So this is a formative assessment. When running formative assessments in your classroom, it is best to keep them short, easy to grade and consistent. Introducing students to formative assessments in a low stakes way can help you benchmark their progress and reduce anxiety, okay, when the big test day comes. So we give them small tests. We try to adjust our way of teaching for them. And then in the final day, you see that they perform much better. So this is what a formative assessment aims at. A summative assessment, this is what we've usually had in our schools. Summative assessments measure student progress as an assessment of learning and provide data for you. So your school leaders or your district leaders or even parents for that matter, what they want to know is how much did my child score? So this is what a summative assessment gives you. It lets you know how much did your child score. They are cost efficient, valuable when it comes to communicating student progress, but they don't always give clear feedback on learning process and can foster a teach to the test mindset if you are not careful. This is exactly what I was talking about, that even though, some children fare very well in tests, their basics are not clear. Or some children who do not fare very well in tests, they have understood the core concept, but have not yet been, reached the mind space to move on to a more complex concept of the same topic. Okay. Now, plus they are stressful for teachers. I'm sure all of you agree. Correcting all these papers, giving marks, dealing with the children, the parents after the marks come in. It's very, very stressful for the teachers. So in a study, 60% of teachers have said that preparing students to pass mandated standardized tests dictates most of or substantially affects their teaching. So does this sound familiar to you? That a lot of times you get, tied up in just trying to get your syllabus completed and you just try to teach what's in the syllabus. You have to race against time to reach your goals. Does it happen with you sometimes? Because you have to make sure that the child is ready for the exam and you don't actually focus on quality, but you end up having to focus on quantity, on how much you're teaching them rather than how well you're teaching them. So yes, this happens in a lot of Indian classrooms at least, and it's about time that this mindset of ours changes and we bring about a revolution in the system of assessments at least. Just because it is a summative assessment, it doesn't mean it can be engaging for students and useful for your teaching. Try creating assessments that deviate from the standard multiple choice tests. Like maybe, as I had suggested in the last session, that we can help children record podcasts. We can ask them to write a script for a short play. We can help them to produce an independent study of a project. So this can be used for science, make them, give them a project. They will do their independent study. So in my school, they used to ask us to come up with new inventions. I know it's not, it might work, it might not work, but everyone tries their best. You get points for creativity. So these are ways in which, standardized tests like summative assessments can also be made a little more mindful and a little more interesting for students. By changing the way we assess them, we have to give them marks at the end of the day anyway, but we change our assessment itself. Okay, now, no matter what type of summative assessment you give to your students, keep some best practices in mind. Keep it real world relevant wherever you can, okay? Don't make it that, about something that's not going to help them in the future. Make it as relevant to the real world. Maybe in maths, teach them about financial literacy. Maybe in maths, if you're giving them a problem, rather than talking about 10 apples and 5 bananas, you can talk about how they can use money in their day-to-day life, how they can calculate money, and or how they can calculate percentages in, we can talk about stocks to them, things that, no one wants to talk to children about because they're too young. But it's okay if we introduce these concepts to them at their level. Maybe when they are older, they won't be as scared of it as we were when we were young adults. Now, make questions clear and instructions easy to follow. Give a rubric so students know what is expected of them. It is very, very important for every teacher to definitely have a rubric when assessing a child, because when we are clear about what we want from the child, only then will the child be clear about what they should prepare for. Because if we are not clear, we just tell them, learn chapter 10 and come. They're just going to mug up and there's going to be word vomit on the paper. We don't want that. We want quality. We don't want quantity. Okay. Now, create your final test after, not before teaching the lesson. So once you are done teaching the lesson, once you know where your children are at, once you know how much of the lesson you have been able to deliver, you have been able to communicate to the child, only then set your assessment for the child. And this is very important. Try blind grading. Do not look at the name on the assessment before you mark it. It might be a very, very small thing. But, when we see the name of a child, since we are interacting with them on a daily basis, we know that, Rima is very good at English. So she would have definitely done well in this test. Rahul is not that good. So, we scrutinize the papers accordingly. So try blind marking. It is very, very effective. Okay, now ipsative assessments. Does anyone know about ipsative assessments? Okay, now, how many of your students get a bad grade on a test or get so discouraged that they stop trying? Now, ipsative assessments are a small solution for this problem that, children don't get demotivated by their test results. Ipsative assessments are one of the type of assessments as learning that compares previous results with a second try, motivating students to set goals and improve their skills, okay? So maybe the 100-mark paper, you give it as 50-50, okay? In the first 50-mark paper, you keep it a little simpler, let them get their basics clear, and then move on. Once they know how much they've understood or how much they've not understood, then move on to the next portion of the paper. Keep a gap in between. Give the child a second chance to go back, revise, and re-give the test again. Okay, give it in 2 halves, or just let them plain re-give the test again. So that is what an ipsative assessment believes in. It is a 2-stage testing process. Okay, now norm reference assessments. So these are the kind of assessments, the entrance tests that we have to give basically. Like Paramita ma'am had mentioned in the beginning, the admission test that children have to give. These are called norm reference assessments, where you will have like usually a multiple choice question where you will have to, where your knowledge will be measured against the knowledge of many other children based on very few generic questions, okay? It might not be able to understand how much in depth you know the topic. If you know your numbers, your figures, a few basic things, if you have it in place, you'll score well, otherwise you won't, okay? So this is a very generic form of assessing students, which might not always be fair. There are tests designed to compare an individual to a group of their peers, usually based on national standards and occasionally adjusted for age, ethnicity, or to other demographics, okay? So these assessments, they might not be fair to children who come from low income backgrounds or children who come from minority backgrounds. Because if you tell, there are always exceptions to the rule, but then they're very few and far apart, just simply because of, the environment that they have grown up in, the facilities that they've had available to them. So maybe, children from your school might fare very well in this test, but if you tell a child from a government school to give the same test, their English might not be up to par with a child from, say, your school. So these tests are not always the best judge of how much a child knows and if a child should get admission in the college or not. It should be more holistic, okay? While they're not usually the type of assessment you deliver in your classroom, chances are you have access to data from past tests that can give you valuable insights into a student's performance. It's the same concept as an admission test. From the past test, you'll know where exactly the child stands. Okay, criterion reference assessments. So this is the last assessment that we are going to discuss in today's session. The assessments compare the score of an individual student to a learning standard and performance level, independent of other students around them. In a classroom, this means measuring students' performance against grade level standards that can include an end of unit or final test to assess the student's understanding. So here the student is only competing with themselves, okay? Now, criterion reference assessments are most often compared to norm reference assessments. While they are both valuable types of assessment of learning, criterion assessments don't measure students against their peers. Instead, each student is graded on their own strengths and their own weaknesses, okay? So these were the type of assessments that we spoke about. Now, how do we create effective assessments? How do we do this at all? Now, you don't want to use a norm reference assessment to figure out where learning gaps in your classroom are, because it is not going to work. And ipsative assessments aren't the best for giving your principal a high-level overview of a student achievement in your classroom. So if you keep giving a child chance over chance, you cannot tell your student, your principal, this is where the child stands, because that is for the child to learn more, and it's ipsative assessment. When it comes to your teaching, here are some of the best practices to help you identify which type of assessment will work and how to structure it, so you and your students get the information that you need. So as I said before, create a rubric. It is very, very important to create a rubric. Students do their best work when they know what is expected of them and how they will be marked. When you are assigning a group project or an independent study unit, a rubric details the exact requirements students must meet to get a specific grade, okay? So this is an example of a rubric that I have taken out for all of you. It is a Wikipedia assessment, okay, assignment assessment, where children have to research some topic and they have to contribute to Wikipedia for it. So this is how they have divided the sections. So teachers, if you want, please do have a look at it. It will help you with your rubrics if you ever have to create it in the future. I'm sure you must be using it in a lot of your classrooms. Okay, so we're going to the next slide now. Now, ask yourself, why are you giving the assessment? Sometimes you feel that, okay, the child needs an assessment, but why? Why are you giving an assessment? Apart from the regular tests that the child has to go through, why are you going to set up the child for this assessment? End of unit tests are tried and tested, staple in any classroom, but why stop here? Let's say you're teaching a unit on multiplying fractions. Try to help plan your lesson, deliver a diagnostic assessment to find out what students remember from last year, okay? So if you're going to teach them multiplication, maybe before you start it, try and understand what they know from the beginning. Try to know where their base is at before you proceed with what you want to teach them. You're only sure they understand all the prerequisites. You can start teaching your own lessons more effectively, which is very, very important. A lot of times we as teachers, we just teach what is required of us to teach. We don't bother to find out how much the child already knows, okay? So this is something that will help a lot. After each class, deliver short exit tickets. They are basically, exit tickets is a doubt clearing session. Find out what students understand and where they still have questions. If you see students struggling, you can reteach or deliver intervention in small groups, which I mentioned at the beginning. Peer learning can be introduced if you do not have the time. Maybe put them in student groups and make them study. Once you're sure every student has mastered the skill, deliver an end of unit test. If one or two students do poorly, you can offer one-to-one support and give them a chance to improve their grades. Now your students are masters of multiplying fractions, and when standardized test season rolls around, you know which of your students are most likely to struggle and where. Okay, so based on all of these suggestions, you can build a more healthy assessment environment. You can help your students understand their lessons better. Okay, and our final thoughts about the different types of assessment. Remember, the learning process doesn't end at one student. Once a student puts down their pencil at the end of the test, it's an ongoing process with plenty of opportunities for the students to build a curious mind. That's what we want. We want our children to be learners. We want our children to be thinkers, okay? And we want them to have new skills. So that is what we want to impart from our classrooms. So thank you very much for listening in to me. I hope this was helpful for all the teachers. I would hope for a more interactive session in the future though. Teachers, anything that you would like to ask me, anything that you would like to discuss with me? Okay, if not, we can all proceed with the day. Farzana ma'am, if I could please have a word with you once the teachers leave.
Sure.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you, teachers. Have a great day.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you. Hi, Farzana ma'am.
Hi, Ms. Adele. How are you doing?
Very good, ma'am. Thank you. I will just just one moment, ma'am. Ma'am, I'd request you if the teachers could participate in the session a little more.
I did notice that. Let me have a word with them in private. I'll take them for a call again, and I'll just talk to them. I was really wondering because that this hasn't been the case in the previous sessions. Normally, they do participate.
Right. And today, a lot of the teachers told me that they had classes, so some of them had to leave.
Yeah, no, why it was one person who had already informed me about only Paramita had informed me, but the arrangement is that I have informed the team head to ensure that whenever they have this training, particular training with instrucko, they'll have to be substituted for their classes. So I'm not sure what really went wrong today. The session was as well supposed to get over only by 3:10, but because of this,
there was no interaction. I had kept a little time, to discuss it with the teachers.
I know. I could pick cues from there. Let me talk to her and get back. We will make sure that this doesn't happen in the next session.
Yes, ma'am. Ma'am, if the teachers could please keep their videos on, it would be much easier for me to interact with them also.
Correct. I'll just keep them informed.
And Farzana ma'am, I request, since, if these topics are not relevant to the teachers that we are covering, if you could send in some suggestions, maybe, then it would be
these topics are actually very useful. Like even the last session was very useful. And this topic, looking at it, I in fact send them a reminder in the morning asking them to take notes, because the different types of assessment methods are really going to be very useful for the teachers when it comes to assessing of students, because day in and out we deal with kids. So I just in fact asked them to do that, but I'm just wondering if they were too busy taking notes.
Yes, so if in case if they have any suggestions, please do forward it to me, because we work really hard on preparing material for your teachers, because we understand that your teachers are very good teachers and we want to give them the best.
Thank you. Thanks for that. I was able to see a hard work done from your end as well. You have done a lot of homework for this session.
I have to study for at least 10 days before I deliver this, because I know that I'm already, delivering a presentation to teachers who know so much already.
Correct.
So, yes.
I do agree with you, Ms. Adele. Sorry about that. Let me talk to them.
No problem. Yes, sure. Thank you. Thank you, ma'am.
Have a nice day. Bye.
Bye-bye.